Welcome back to College Football Addiction. I think the channel's favorite guest that we get on a regular basis. Sports Talk Jay, man, how you doing a couple days after a rough one?
Not good. I'm not happy.
Haven't moved on completely. I watched your show and I watched you say, I'm still going to make a video making fun of Alabama, but they're going to crucify me in the comments because we lost too. But I appreciate you still showing up. I feel like I've been showing up all year after tough stuff, and so I appreciate you doing it too.
Yeah, I can't get over what your fan base has gone through. Nothing makes. I don't understand how that can happen. I
Yeah.
really, from a top 10 team that was undefeated in the regular season to show up this year and it doesn't even look like the same anything.
Yeah, they look like they should be playing high school ball. So, um, all right, how talk about we'll talk certainly tonight a ton about this Florida game, a really fun rivalry, a game that even though Florida has won a lot of it lately, a game that still ends up being close a lot of times and ends up being a lot of fun. Florida's had big comebacks, Tennessee's had big comebacks. There's always a lot of drama that goes on with this, and so before we talk about that though, just overall, I know you've talked about this on your channel, and we just talked about it a little bit off the air too. But the Arkansas loss, I mean, surprises you a little bit. I was telling you, we turned it off at 14-3. We found something else to watch when I was in Doak the other day. We had some TVs on, and yeah, to blow that late and just kind of play poorly down the stretch is certainly disheartening for a team that looked like they were well on their way to pretty great things this year.
Yeah, our offense is not clicking like it has been in the past. We've got a freshman quarterback, and he looked like a freshman
Yeah.
the other night, and that was very frustrating. I think they had him confused, and they put some defense that we hadn't seen was part of it. And then Nico, like I said, I think Heupel's being a little too protective with him. You can tell he's not. He's a natural runner, and we saw that in the game against Clemson in the bowl game. But he's not running very much this year, and I think Heupel has pretty much told him we don't need you to run. We just want to keep you as safe as we can. Well, when you get in the SEC on the road, you need your quarterback to ball out to
Yeah.
win ball games. We saw that with Diego Pavia. He literally is a Superman. That guy puts his team on his shoulders,
Yeah.
and that may be what's happening with Florida State. You had a quarterback that was very lethargic and didn't have that spirit that you need, and that may have infiltrated the FSU team. I'm wondering because y'all seem to be a little bit more upbeat with your new quarterback, a little bit more fight, maybe. And we need our quarterback to start doing what Hendon Hooker did, which was run on a regular basis, run aggressively, not stupidly. You can still get down, but in our offense, our quarterback is required to run to be
Yeah.
successful, period.
The RPO is just such a big part of today's college football game that it's just such a numbers advantage. And I don't think now there are some great quarterbacks, Quinn and shoot, Texas has got two of them, but there are some great quarterbacks that can just sit back there and play football. Like you talk about Florida State, like Jameis could sit back there. He never had to run because he was just that level of quarterback. And there are some, but most quarterbacks, especially at a young age, like it's hard to just make them into an NFL guy. And defenses, when they can do that, I think defenses are good enough in college to kind of limit them. But when you do have a quarterback that can, one, it's unpredictability, right? When he runs the ball, and it's just a numbers advantage. And so when you use those legs, it is such a massive advantage. And Florida State did that last year. You mentioned Florida State this year with DJ not being able to move his legs at all. It looks like he's in concrete. But in games against like BC and Wake Forest and teams that you were going to beat by quite a bit, they didn't let Jordan Travis run at all. But against Miami and Clemson and Florida and well, Florida, he was hurt. But in LSU, in games that were big or games they'd be trailing in, they let him run a little bit. And maybe Josh didn't think he had to run it against an Arkansas team. But, that's a good follow-up. Do you think they'll open that up more with the Florida game was probably already kind of a need to win, but now it's a must win. Like you can't lose the Florida game at this point. Do you think they'll open that up, especially considering Florida doesn't defend a quarterback run very well?
If he doesn't, we'll struggle. If he does not say, you've got to run, we're going to set up some running plays for you because nobody can cover a really good running quarterback. I don't give a crap which Georgia kind of can, but that's about it. It's almost impossible because, like you said, the odds are against you.
Yeah.
You don't have a guy for that quarterback. You just don't. And Hendon Hooker was as good as we'd seen up here in UT in a long time, and he scared the defense to death. And that's why he was averaging 46 points a game and 300 yards a game with 30 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. So we need Nico to be more along those lines, and you need to be able to run 70, 80 yards a game. You can't run 10 or 5 or -3.
Yeah. And even if you're not taking off all the time, it's just the threat of it. It's just keeping that one extra guy at home that the threat of the quarterback run opens things up in the pass. Like it just impacts so many defenses. That's why, remember SEC defense? Like it used to be a real thing. Like nobody plays defense anymore. Like you're trying to outscore people. And offenses are at such an advantage with that quarterback run that it is almost impossible to stop if the threat is there. Tennessee probably doesn't need any extra motivation for UF ever, especially considering last year. But you're certainly not happy with the loss last week, but do you think the loss actually does benefit them looking forward to this week with maybe a little extra motivation to go out there and prove that last week was a fluke?
I think if they don't have fire in their eyes for this ball game, we got bigger problems because, first of all, it's Florida. We just came off I don't want to call it a humiliating loss because Arkansas is a decent team. They really are.
Yeah.
They could have been undefeated going into that game if they'd had a few things go their way. But, yeah, they're going to be super motivated because everybody's, looking down on them like, what happened? How could this have happened? I would think Heupel will have them as fired up as they can be. Plus, we cannot lose this game, period. If we're going to make the playoff, we must win this game. Otherwise, then you're stuck having to beat Bama and Georgia, which you're not going to do. Nobody's going to beat Alabama and Georgia the same year and Georgia on the road. It's just not going to happen. So you've got to win this game, win one of those two, and then win out the rest of the games, which you can do.
Yeah. UF specifically, which we're going to chat with Allie. So any Tennessee fans or Florida fans that are watching this, hit the subscribe button and we'll get her perspective on this in a little bit. But thoughts on UF? We talked about this. They've got a couple of wins. They beat Mississippi State, not maybe a great team by any means. They beat a UCF team that Colorado humiliated the week before. So I still don't know that UF is for real, but they're up above 500 now. They probably have a little more confidence now than they had just a couple of weeks ago. What are your thoughts on them coming in here and needing a big win to probably save Napier's job still?
Well, Graham Mertz is a good quarterback. He's throwing, he typically throws over 70% now, and he's played great. Those last couple of games, he threw, 19 for 21 or 17 for 21 or whatever the crap it was. He looked darn good. And he makes a lot of smart moves. He runs when he needs to, and he can play keep away, which is what he did to us down at the Swamp last year. Is they held the ball a long time, which is what Arkansas did in the first half. They had the ball for 10 more minutes than we did. Yeah. So he can be a problem. We need to score points. That's what it boils down to. We need our quarterback to run. We need to get back to scoring points, and hopefully corral Graham Mertz, not let him nitpick us to death with his little 5-yard dump passes that he's the king of.
What about preparing for Lagway too? He's actually looked good, and I hate the whole 2 quarterback thing, but it seems like, and again, I don't think Mississippi State or UCF have great defenses, and so everything with a grain of salt. But Lagway's looked pretty good when he's been in there too. Preparing for both of those maybe presents a little bit of a weird challenge for Tennessee.
Well, with DJ, he's so inexperienced. I'd much rather be playing against him. I think he's very talented, and he's going to be a good quarterback long term. I'm sure part of the reason he played DJ was, number one, to calm the fan base down. Number two, to keep him motivated and staying with the team so that maybe if Billy somehow saves his job, he can, stay the next year because he needs DJ Lagway. Sure. Which I think DJ should stay. If Billy makes it through this year, he definitely should, because he'd be the starting quarterback guaranteed, which is great. But this whole Billy Napier, he was gone 2 weeks ago. I mean, I thought they were going to fire him maybe he'd lose the UCF and they'd fire him before he came to Tennessee. But he's back to having a chance. If he were to somehow beat us, you can't fire that guy.
Yeah. they've got more winnable games than it looks like early in the year. Like
Yeah.
we'll talk, Vegas still really likes Tennessee here, but they've got Kentucky in a couple of weeks in the Swamp. I mean, that's winnable. The Swamp's a tough place to play. They play Florida State, who's a bigger dumpster fire than they are. They play Ole Miss and LSU. Though both of those will be tough, but certainly don't look like they're just automatic losses. Now, I don't see them beating Georgia or Texas, but they've got some winnable games, I think, on the back half of their schedule. And so he might save his job. Now, if they come out and lose this by 20, I think everybody's going to be back off the bandwagon. But I think there's a chance of them getting to a bowl. I don't think it's a certainty because they're going to need to upset somebody. Like they could beat Kentucky, they could beat Florida State. I don't know if they can. Where's that sixth win? That gets them to 5. Where's the sixth win? It could be LSU. It could be Ole Miss. It could be this weekend. But I don't think any of those are certainties. So 6-6, maybe. I think 5-7 is probably their most likely at this point.
Yeah, 5-7, they'll let him go. If he gets to 6, they'll probably keep him because they owe him $26 million.
Yeah.
The whole Lane Kiffin thing has become – that'd be the best thing that could happen to Lane Kiffin is for Billy to get hot because it'll kill his team because he will not shut that down, that whole going to Florida thing. He just can't. It's who the man is.
Yeah.
And his team will quit on him at the end if that happens, just like they did in 2022 or the Auburn crap. So, yeah, it's – the Billy Napier thing it was an absolute saga in Florida. And I'm hoping we send him packing.
It's been an up and down roller coaster to watch where they're at. Cause like right now there's a couple of good vibes and stuff. So, their trenches have looked a little bit better these last couple of weeks. And again, you're taking the opponent into consideration, but their offensive line overall just still not great. How much do you like your D line going up against their O line?
Their offensive line is going to get tested big time, just like they did against Miami. I think Miami's defensive line, Tennessee's, is about the same. We'll get after you. Now, Neyland is going to be on fire.
Yeah.
I don't know how excited the team is to play Florida, but by the time they get into Neyland, they'll be going nuts. And I'm talking about the team, too, because Neyland will go up in the air 100 yards, flip around, and come back down multiple times in the game. Because everybody in that fan base hates Florida. I mean, there is just – it's as bad as FSU. I don't know if it's as bad as FSU hating Florida, but it's close.
Yeah. Jason Marshall, their cornerback, is really good, and he was able to limit UCF's best wide receiver. Now, I spoke with some UCF folks last week, and they kind of told us, like, yeah, Travis Hunter was able to shut down our number 1 wide receiver, and then we don't really have much outside of that. And so Jason Marshall, a really good cornerback. In a secondary that's not been very good, he really does a great job for them. I think the problem for them is that Tennessee is not a one-man show out at wide receiver and has – I don't know, you correct me if I'm wrong here, maybe a top 5, certainly a top 10 wide receiver core in the country. And that, to me, that's where I think Tennessee can really take advantage. If Nico's on, they don't have enough guys that can cover your wide receivers.
I think we may see a different Nico this weekend. I do think he's going to let him loose and let him play a little bit of yard ball. And heck, our Mike Matthews is one of our backups. He's a 5-star and a phenomenal guy. Well, he needs to see the field the rest of the season. I want to start seeing some more Matthews because he's impressive. And that we're fine at wide receiver. That's not an issue. It's just a matter of let Nico be Nico. Just let him play ball, and I think we'll be okay. And just let Neyland do Neyland. Neyland's a 7 to 10 point advantage, especially at night. Oh man, that hurt us at Arkansas big time. I knew that night game. I was like, damn it. Those night games, they make a big difference because everybody gets a little polluted and they get wild and crazy. And Arkansas, look, we had 10 penalties, 8 of which were crowd noise penalties. And that 1st and 15, we're a run first team, and most people now realize that 1st and 15 is not where you want to be.
Sure.
So we'll have a lot less of that at Neyland. And Florida will have some of that. We'll cause them 3 or 4 offsides or false starts because it's so loud.
Yeah. They also did a good job, kind of taking the Colorado blueprint against UCF and loading the box to keep a great rushing attack pretty limited. Again, I don't think they can do that against Tennessee because, first of all, I think Samson is great and the rushing attack is really, really good. But second, I don't think they can – I don't think they can load the box just hoping to stop the run and then let Nico and those wide receivers kind of go off. So I lean Tennessee here. I actually kind of like them against the spread. So big spread. I know we're doing this early in the week, so I don't know if you've done like an official prediction or not, but just how do you kind of see this going down?
I thought it'd be more like 10 points or 12 points. I was a little surprised it was 15 given the poor nature of the way our offense performed against Arkansas. But these professionals, when it comes to point spreads, they're pretty good at it. You know, they're pretty much, it's what they do for a living. So I would probably lean more towards that than I would anything else. I tell you, I'm a big believer in crowd noise and home field advantage at night. I think it's way undervalued. So I can't wait to get our team back in Neyland. I'll just say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's tough to. I mean, Napier and UF have not been great on the road in general. I think their two SEC wins are against South Carolina and then Mississippi State here. This most recent time they went on the road, playing at night though in front of 100,000 people is certainly different against still a team that let down last week, but certainly still a pretty good ball club. But when they're performing well, a top 10 team. So, Jay, I know you'll talk about this game a ton this week. Where can people find more of your thoughts and more of what you have to say?
Just Sports Talk Jay.
Awesome, man. Well, we appreciate you a ton for hanging out, and we'll certainly talk with you soon. And good luck this weekend.
All right. See you, buddy.